All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Small Business Strong. We have a really special session today, so really appreciate you all for being here. My name is Jenny Najarro. I'm the Senior Program Coordinator
Can
with
you all hear
the
me?
Entrepreneurship and Innovation.
We can hear you, Martin.
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome. And it's really great to see everyone, and thank you so much for joining today. We will begin in just a moment. We will begin in just a moment, so just make sure to please keep yourselves on mute to minimize any background noise. Please drop your name and company in the chat. Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us? All right. And then during the presentation, we definitely invite you to drop your questions in the chat, and we will call on you during the Q&A session after the presentation. And we invite you to unmute yourself and ask your question. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Maria Salinas, President and CEO of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, to kick off our session today. And it is about LA versus hate and United Against Hate. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much, Jenny. Appreciate the introduction and welcome to everybody. Good morning. I am excited to be a co-host with this event for the LA Chamber, to be a part of LA versus Hate and the Unite Against Hate webinar that we are co-hosting here with the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI Los Angeles office. So welcome to all of you. We at the Chamber are committed to supporting businesses to stay abreast of changing business practices, to make strategic, employee-centered investments which promote business growth and advance employees' economic opportunity. The LA versus Hate, Unite Against Hate Week supports these Chamber goals. With these goals in mind, the Chamber joined a diverse coalition of business and community partners earlier this week to address the division that comes with hate. We are proud to be with the LA versus Hate Coalition. The LA versus Hate program aims to inspire people to stand up to hate in all forms, from workplace biases motivated by bullying to inequitable workplace practices. Today, I'm excited to be joined by U.S. Department of Justice and FBI to have this discussion with all of you. And first up, I am so pleased to introduce our first speaker, Martin Estrada, United States Attorney from the Central District of California. Welcome, Martin. I will pass this over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully,
the audio is working.
You are muted. The host would like you to unmute your microphone. You can press.
Martin, you are muted right now.
We are unable to hear you.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. So I've got the audio difficulties, so I'm on my phone and on the computer. So in some way this will work. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Martin Estrada. I'm the United States Attorney for the Central District of California. Some of you may be wondering, what is the Central District of California? It is the region of California which encompasses Los Angeles, but also Orange County, Ventura, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, Riverside, and San Bernardino. It's the largest district in the country and certainly one of the most important districts in terms of addressing criminal activity and in particular crimes of hate, as this particular program is dedicated to addressing. Now, we do a lot of different work in our office. Most of you know we do a lot of work in the fraud context. We do a lot of work with regard to violent crimes, gun trafficking, and all sorts of violent crimes, public corruption, environmental crimes, national security, and we also do civil rights work. Our civil rights work encompasses both civil and criminal civil rights work. And that's important because that gives us a lot of tools to address violations of civil rights, including hate crimes and acts of hate. We are here for United Against Hate Week. As I mentioned on the kickoff on Monday, this week and this work is critical to us. We have various tools to address violations of federal law, including hate crimes, but we can't do it alone. We need the cooperation of our community partners, such as yourselves. We need our partners in law enforcement to work with us to address these issues. And together, with those crimes being reported, being brought to our attention, we can address them. But just as importantly, this week, United Against Hate addresses education. And we can certainly prosecute cases to the full extent when those cases warrant prosecution. But education is really the key way that we can address the increase in hate crimes and hate incidents that have plagued our district. So I'm very happy to be speaking to you and being part of this program where we help educate regarding hate crimes and hate incidents, and also talk about the resources we have so that when you all in the community, in the business community, in the social residential communities, encounter these types of acts, you can report them to our partners in law enforcement, to us, the United States Attorney's Office, and together we can address this problem and make sure that it's reduced and we have a district which is better and more mindful of all of our civil rights. Now, we have, as part of our program, various efforts that we've been pursuing. I believe we talked about those quite extensively earlier, but I want to highlight those again. We have today's forum. We had also this week a forum with regard to LGBTQ plus community members, and for them to understand hate crimes and hate incidents and understand the importance of reporting those. But this is only the beginning. There's a Department of Justice initiative called United Against Hate, same term, so there's some overlap there. But this is a nationwide initiative championed by Maine Justice, championed by the head of our civil rights section in Washington, in which nationwide we're working together to combat these issues, to work with our community members, to educate the public, to address the rise in hate and make sure that that rise stops and that we have a decrease in these types of incidents. So thank you all for your attention. Thank you all for being part of this important launch. But as I mentioned, this is only the beginning, and we look forward to further collaboration, further working together, and further cooperation in addressing this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. I am going to ask all the panelists and presenters today, we have 3 of us, to announce themselves and how they work to prevent hate in our district. I'll start with myself. My name is Matthew Barragan. I'm an assistant United States attorney working under Martin and his administration to help support civil rights enforcement in our district. I'll be using the United Against Hate community outreach presentation materials that Maine Justice and our team in Washington worked with our U.S. Attorney's Office, Federal Bureau of Investigation, CRS, the Community Relations Service, and others to provide this outreach and support. We've also tailored it to be specific to the small business community, and so we hope that you will take these resources today and be better informed on how we can all work together to prevent hate. I'll now introduce Victoria Sanchez. Go ahead and make your introduction, Victoria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Sanchez. I'm a special agent here in FBI Los Angeles. I work on a civil rights squad, so we investigate hate crimes, color of law violations, and FACE Act, which is the freedom of access to clinic entrances. I work closely, of course, with the United States Attorney's Office, and I'm looking forward to presenting today with Matthew Barragan.
Thank you, Victoria. And now Vincent.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Vincent Player, and I also work for Department of Justice, a different component. It's called Community Relations Service. So we get involved in, actually, the only federal mediation service that deals with community conflicts. So if there's a conflict and it's tied to community tensions around race, color, creed, national origin, prevention of hate crimes, we have some specific services that we can offer. And specifically for the business community is our conciliation / mediation type services. And I thank you for being here and look forward to this presentation.
Excellent. Now, Jenny, if I can share my screen. Thanks for standing by as I launch this. Excellent. Well, again, we're happy to have you here so we can explore strategies for addressing hate crimes together. We've all seen too often how individuals filled with hate have harmed our community. That's why we've invited federal law enforcement, and we've also invited community leaders here to join us today. We hope this presentation helps you to better identify and report potential hate crimes so that we can work together to prevent future hate crimes and bring perpetrators to justice. Let's review the agenda for today's program. We're going to start by taking a few minutes to discuss our purpose for being here. Then in part one, we'll provide an overview of hate crimes and incidents to help you identify them if and when they occur. Next, in part two, we'll discuss the importance of reporting hate crimes and incidents to law enforcement so they can respond appropriately. Last, in part three, we'll discuss strategies for preventing hate crimes, which include strengthening relationships between communities and law enforcement and building coalitions with other community groups. In this section, we'll also highlight some local and federal resources that may be useful to you. We'll do all of this using video clips and interactive exercises, so please be prepared to participate. We'll take folks off of mute and we'll utilize the chat function. The most important thing about today's presentation is what happens after we leave the webinar. Maybe this presentation will encourage you to report a hate crime or incident. Maybe you'll feel inspired to get involved in hate crime prevention efforts that are going on this week during United Against Hate Week, but all year round throughout the district. And maybe, hopefully, this presentation will encourage you to contact our U.S. Attorney's Office to ask about resources or training that our DOJ team might be able to provide you with. We at the U.S. Attorney's Office have our own objectives for today's event. We want to learn about why people don't always report hate crimes or incidents, and we want to know how we can help. Are there things that we could be doing to better support hate crimes? Are we doing everything we can with respect to supporting prevention efforts? We look forward to hearing from you on these and other important topics today. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to ask you to complete an evaluation of this program. Your input is extremely valuable, so please take some time to fill that out. As Martine mentioned, we're going to be hosting these as part of a national program, and this will all serve to make this program the most responsive and supportive it can be. As this is interactive, we want to just set some ground rules. We want to acknowledge that talking about hate crimes can be difficult. These incidents bring up strong emotions. We want to encourage an open and honest dialogue and give everyone an opportunity to speak today or be heard. And to maximize our time together, let's set some rules to respect each other, to be interactive where you want to be. So feel free to plug in. And if you do unmute yourself, please silence yourselves and limit background noise. And I just wanted to check with the panelists to make sure that the screen is clear, that you can see everything all right, and that the audio is okay. Thank you. If it ever changes, please do let me know. The Zoom presentation is a little difficult because you can't see all of the panelists at once, but I know that you're taking in the information today. So thank you. I want to take a poll, and if you can use the chat function just to let us know. Please let us know if you know someone affected by a hate crime, and this can include yourself. I also took a moment to note when people joined in, they mentioned their businesses, and we've noted that there are a number of different retailers and business owners who support the community. We hope that this can be a resource that you can share with your employees and others in the community, so that if you observe a hate crime or hate incident at your retail location, in your neighborhood, that you'll be prepared to assist and step in. I'm seeing some folks, and it looks like yes. And also, if you don't feel comfortable to identify that in the chat, we do understand many of us are impacted by hate crimes. Today we hope to continue this open conversation so that we can all be more knowledgeable and empowered to better address them in our communities. So as I mentioned, for part one, the objective is to better understand what a hate crime is. So let's start about talking about hate crimes and hate incidents and understand why hate crimes are treated differently than other crimes. And this is where I'm really going to turn to Victoria, our expert in this area. So Victoria, can you tell our participants what is a hate crime?
Absolutely. So a hate crime is anything that, let's say a crime that's committed for against someone's having a bias or prejudice against a protected class. So that could be your race, gender, ethnicity, a handful of other things, but that would then cause someone to commit a crime against you.
Thank you, Victoria. And the term hate is a bit misleading. While individuals who commit hate crimes often hate everyone who has that characteristic, most of the laws only require that the crime be committed because of those characteristics. So there's no requirement that the prosecutors involved or our office would prove that they hated everyone with that particular characteristic. Victoria mentioned federally protected classes. So these are federally protected: race, color, national origin, religion, disability, sexual orientation, familial status, sex, gender, and gender identity. And we're going to just take a moment to observe a video, and this really gets to the purpose of it's called Waking in Oak Creek. It's about a community's effort to heal following a deadly hate crime that killed 6 worshipers in a Sikh temple in Oak Creek. So this is a film that was produced. Can someone let me know if you can hear this all right?
Yes.
And you can see it? Okay, great.
Where's your emergency? Yeah, I was just going to Sikh temple and I was in the parking lot and I think someone was shooting some guy with the turban. He's in a church with a gun?
Yeah, because I can hear it in there. He's in there shooting people.
A white supremacist fueled by hatred walked into our local Gurdwara with a loaded gun. He killed my mother while she prayed. He shot and killed 5 more men.
I think this is an assault on all of us. It's an assault on anybody who's a Milwaukeean, a Wisconsinite, an American, a human being.
We are celebrating the lives of 6 victims who tragically lost their lives on Sunday, August 5th, 2012.
I don't know anybody personally that goes to the Sikh temple here, but it still hits close to home. He very well could have walked into my church and done the same thing.
The whole point of a candlelight vigil is that light embodies the hope that we have amongst this darkness. That so many people were getting together blocks away from where this happened, without any fear and with so much love. It was tremendous.
Here in the Milwaukee area, you never think that it would happen in your own backyard. But then again, on Sunday, it did. And we go to a point where it calls us to action.
In 28 years of law enforcement, I have seen a lot of hate, I've seen a lot of revenge, and I've seen a lot of anger. What I saw, particularly from the Sikh community this week, was compassion, concern, and support.
My dad is the first one to help protect that temple. It was his, it was ours. He lost his life.
Yeah, so I mean, we're seeing the consequences of hate in our communities, and we're hoping that today's presentation can lead us to be better prepared to respond if an incident occurs, and to work together to try to prevent these types of tragedies from occurring. I'm going to go over into a brief overview of the federal hate crime laws that exist. Hate crimes are not new in the United States, and neither are federal hate crime laws. Congress passed the first hate crime laws in the aftermath of the Civil War, following the abolition of slavery, to address violence aimed at African Americans. And even though that law is over 150 years old, federal prosecutors still use it today. Over the last 50 years, Congress has passed additional laws to protect people renting or buying a home or apartment, exercising their religion, or engaging in certain other important activities. As Martin mentioned, our office does work to enforce those laws in our jurisdiction. And also, Congress added in 2009 a law to expand the scope of federal hate crimes to include gender and sexual orientation and gender identity. You'll see in 2021, the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act was passed in response to a spike in hate incidents against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders during the pandemic. This legislation includes the Jabara Hayer No Hate Act, which is named after 2 victims of hate crimes, and included a variety of provisions to improve hate crimes reporting and better support the victims of hate crimes. And it was actually during this time, during the pandemic, that our department in Health and Human Services were working together to perform outreach and telling communities, please report hate crimes to us, to law enforcement. And the response was, we don't really know all of the elements that make a hate crime. And if we report something and someone's not prosecuted, should we even report it? And so this training was really developed during that time to provide the resources that community can learn how to identify these activities and how to call the right people. I will tell you that you'll see as part of United Against Hate Week, 211 LA is a number that the county has provided to provide support for people who maybe don't know exactly what merits a call. And you'll learn during today's presentation, you should really call law enforcement for most activities. We also have in 2022 the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act that finally made lynching a federal hate crime. In 2008, Congress passed a bill requiring the FBI and Department of Justice to investigate unsolved hate crimes that occurred prior to December 31st, 1969. That was later extended into 1979. And then why hate crimes matter. So many people wonder why we need hate crime laws when the criminal acts themselves are already covered under criminal law. Hate crimes matter because the impact is felt beyond the immediate victim of the crime and that person's family. They traumatize others who share traits with the victim as well as the victim's community, and sometimes even the entire nation. When we read news articles and we see video clips, we often think if we're safe, and by feeling less safe, that is a harm. And so I want to ask Victoria, in your work in the community. If someone were to call the FBI, can you explain, how the victims can be supported?
Yes, so every call, we have a number here that you can also call, the FBI Los Angeles phone number. And we have a duty agent who would take in the complaint, and then that complaint is filtered down to our squad. So again, I work on a civil rights squad, and we are the only standalone civil rights squad in all of the FBI. It's not to say that FBI doesn't work hate crimes anywhere else, but they're filtered in with public correction squads as well. And we are a standalone squad. Therefore, you can see we have the time to take care of all of the Los Angeles area, and it's all that we do, and we deeply care. So we will go and we'll talk to victims, we'll talk to people in the area, witnesses, and gather as much information to see what elements of a crime we do have, whether it end up being a federal case or we work with the locals. We'll find a way to get justice for the community. And it does start with outreach moments like this, where we share how we work together with the locals and giving the community the strength and power to want to contact law enforcement.
Thank you. Hate crime statutes vary by state. And so protected classes, remedies for the victim, reporting requirements. I'll say in California, if you've been a victim of hate, if you've been targeted because of your actual or perceived race or ethnicity, nationality, religion, gender, sexual orientation, physical or mental disability, or association with a person or group with one or more of these actual or perceived characteristics. And then we're getting into First Amendment protection. So, the incident part of this kind of leads us to discuss people in this country being able to express their own beliefs, asking others to adopt those beliefs, even if we disagree with them, even if they're hurtful. So if you've wondered why someone can't be arrested for spewing hate-filled and hurtful messages, we have protections to allow, under the First Amendment of the US Constitution, people to express themselves. And even if their message is out of hate, the same amendment allows us to all speak freely, to live in a country with a free press, petition the government, and practice whatever religion that we choose, or to practice none at all. But even with the First Amendment, there are limits. And so I was hoping, Victoria, if you could speak to the limits on the First Amendment when speech becomes more than speech.
Absolutely. So often so again, going back to a hate incident, it is these moments where awful things are spewed, and we often say on our squad, awful but not unlawful. The hate speech, of course, is something we still want to know about, but what crosses the line is if there's an action with that hate speech or hate incident. If your business has graffiti on it that is full of hate speech, it might be vandalism, but there's also this hate crime aspect to it. And then was anyone hurt in the process of this? Did you lose money on things like this? So that's when it kind of crosses into that hate crime territory. But even then, a hate incident, awful speech, still report to the locals, because it oftentimes shows a trend, for lack of a better word, of what's happening in the community and for what we should be on the lookout for.
And if someone is reported a hate incident against an individual, can that evidence be used for later if they act, beyond just speech?
Absolutely. So if someone is a repeat offender of doing things like this, and then later on it comes up, we're able to go back and show that's a pattern of who this person is, and that they have this bias and this motivation to go against said protected group.
And any other things you want to add about the First Amendment protection, and maybe folks being confused about why certain things are allowed?
It's hard. It's one of the things about our Constitution. The best part about being American is we can say what we want to say. And a lot of these bad people who have hate in their hearts, they know how to toe the line of, this is a hate incident, nothing can happen to me, before crossing the line and making it a hate crime where law enforcement is actively involved. So even though it feels kind of helpless to contact law enforcement and know that there's nothing that can be done right then, know that it's just as important to us. We still are just taking note of it at that moment.
Yeah, in our region, many but not all cities are collecting hate incident reports, and so they will take an official report and maintain that for use with cooperation with other law enforcement agencies. So that's an increasing trend. So we're going to go through like what we discussed just now and through a real case study, US versus Ledford. An individual in Iowa with a criminal history involving firearms sent 2 Facebook messages to a religious organization in Massachusetts. The first message, if you just see at the very bottom, number 1, your prophet, your prophet is a child rapist, a murderer, and a molester. You will go to hell with your father, Satan. We will destroy you here and in your shithole country. Excuse my language. The second message includes a picture of someone with an assault rifle that says, "This is for your followers, you piece of expletive." Definition of a true threat is the communication of a serious intent to harm, must also show the defendant intended to treat the communication to be interpreted as a threat or knew that it would be. To show the difference between hate speech and a true threat, we're going to go through these sentences one at a time. So the first sentence, we can see that this is really hate speech only. When you add the first and second sentence, it gets a little closer to a true threat because it mentions going to hell, like threatening death, but you're still not a true threat. First and second and third use destroy. That sounds closer to a threat, but arguably maybe advocating for a certain position rather than a promise. But then when you get to the fourth sentence, this is for you followers with a picture of an assault rifle. This combined with the statements, increases it to a true threat. And this was actually used to obtain a plea. Victoria, any contributions on the social media, certain speech that you've seen when you see it rise to this level?
We often go back and look at someone's social media to see if this is if they have that same bias and it's an ongoing motivation to get there. And again, a true threat, it's something that is for law enforcement to find out. So if you feel threatened for any reason at all, again, you'll keep hearing me say, but report to local law enforcement, and we'll figure it out from there. But oftentimes this language like this is seen, and then whether it's something that is a threat or a true threat now, it may be a true threat later on as we go back through our investigation.
Thank you. And can you say what things people should keep in mind when contacting law enforcement, taking notes, witnesses? How can they help you?
Yes, always be a good witness and really just getting down names, phone numbers, license plates, social media. If there's social media like this, take a screenshot, write down dates and times that messages came through. People can delete messages on their end. So again, the screenshots are really helpful as far as social media is concerned. But in real life, yeah, license plates, photos of the individuals, a name if you hear it.
Yeah, and I think, this is really the purpose of these presentations, is so that if you contact the FBI or our office, you'll see Victoria and she's going to handle it. So I think, you'll know you're in good hands. And then now some hate incidents may be discrimination. Martin mentioned our office handles both criminal and civil matters. I'm actually in the civil rights section. And so I work on discrimination. And so if there is a case where words have been mentioned against you based on hate, motivated by hate, it could be that you're not looking at a prosecution in a criminal case, but you're looking at a civil action, and the federal government enforces those protections. So if you're getting language in a housing or employment context, that could be something that our office could pursue. So we've asked you to report civil rights violations that you think could, or someone else, if you think you or someone else's rights have been violated, to contact us. We'll be happy to walk through it with you. There are also organizations that have programs focused on providing support, and they're also local counsel, but we'll be happy to go over each claim with you and discuss if involvement with our office is appropriate. You can also visit our Washington, DC's main civilrights.justice.gov for more information. And now we're going to even when a hate incident can't be prosecuted, like as Victoria mentioned, information about the event is still useful to law enforcement. Data about hate and hate incidents help police understand more about trends in a community and may help officers investigate future hate crimes. And reporting also brings an awareness. We all talk to each other, and even more so now with events like United Against Hate. And so we're looking to share trends, and then we can provide resources and support and social services in certain regions to certain communities. The more we talk to one another about these issues, the better prepared we'll be to address this. And while we encourage you to report all hate-motivated conduct and enforcement, we'd like to go through some examples of hate crimes to help you have a better understanding of what can be criminally prosecuted. So for each of these examples that we're going to present, we're going to ask you whether you think it's a hate crime, hate incident, or discrimination based on the slight changes of the facts. So I'm going to read through this. This is the first activity. Is this a hate crime or a hate incident? A young African-American brother and sister are walking down the street. They pass a man who screams racial slurs at them. So if we want to unmute some of our participants, or they're free to use the Q&A function, we can do that now. And if anyone wants to answer, that's fine. If not, we can move forward. So this incident so far, this is a hate incident. So screaming racial slurs is a hateful act, but no crime took place because there was no threat. A racial slur is not a threat. So although this is a really unfortunate situation, it is an incident at this point. So we're going to add additional facts. Let's add the fact that the man swung a crowbar at them while threatening to kill them. Would that change anything? And then I'm seeing some chats here.
Yes, that would become a hate crime. No?
Thank you, Nancy. Well, perhaps because swinging a crowbar at someone constitutes assault. And when that assault's motivated by racial bias, it may constitute a hate crime under local hate crime laws. So Victoria, can you talk to the specific example that I gave?
Yes, so going back to the first part of it, the man screaming racial slurs at them, it's the statement of awful but not unlawful. It's unfortunately protected by the First Amendment. However, now adding in that action of wanting a true threat action of wanting to hurt them, that's when it rises to the level of a hate crime.
Thank you. And Nancy, would you feel in the first incident, since you've joined us, would you call anyone if you had someone screaming racial slurs at someone in your business or at you?
No, I would not. I would just look at him or look at the person and be a little upset, but I would move on, as long as we didn't engage in a contact.
Yeah, and I think your point's well taken. We all feel like, am I making a big deal about this? Is this something that they can do anything about? And that's why I think hate crimes are underreported. We're trying to learn about why people don't call. And sometimes we're just, in some cases, as personally as a queer Latino, living in Los Angeles, I've experienced hate as well. And, I would be on the phone a lot in certain circumstances. But through this program and through my legal education, I really found it to be important to work with local law enforcement because you don't know what that person's capable of next, and maybe that information can help. So, this is a really helpful exercise. I want to go through one more fact scenario. We're going to add the fact that go ahead.
Okay. But it takes a lot of time to do all that. Maybe you guys, I don't know, maybe you guys could create an app where you do the incident online on an app, make it a little easier for the person, because as you know, in LA, time is money. So people don't have time to deal with this racial hate crime possible incident. It did not, and when you're it's very disappointing to put a complaint in or anything, because it gets nothing done, but it takes up your time and nothing really gets done. That same person's going to be there maybe the next week or the next couple of hours. So I think that maybe an app would be helpful. I don't know, but I understand where you guys are at.
Thank you for the suggestion. Victoria, did you want to add something?
Yes, I was going to say the your point, Nancy, that the person might come back next week or the week after that. If you make the first report and then the person keeps coming back, this person becomes of interest to law enforcement. This isn't a one-off incident. He wasn't angry because someone just cut him off on the 405 before arriving at your establishment. He has some kind of bias or motivation. So even though it might take away, if you make the phone call and local law enforcement responds, and maybe you have cameras in your establishment that caught him on camera saying this or acting a certain way, or you took photos, or you got his license plate as he drove away. These little things add into the report that hopefully this person doesn't continue to come back week after week and wreak havoc in your establishment.
Thanks, Victoria. And also 211 LA, you can make an anonymous report and the County Human Relations Commission will report to agencies and we work together to collect that. So if someone's uncertain or feels like they don't know, they can get guidance there. They can also contact our office. I'm going to add a quick scenario here. Now let's add the fact that the brother and sister live in public housing and a neighbor yells racial slurs at them and taunts them daily. Would that change anything? So here, this is where my civil background comes in. You know, depending on the facts, both the housing provider and the neighbor could face civil liability for violating the Fair Housing Act. And it may also violate other laws which prohibit race, color, and national origin discrimination in programs and activities that receive federal funds and the Safe Streets Act. So, you know, I think, Nancy, this goes back to, should I report? Sometimes you may be in a situation where you have a cause of action, you have some relief that can be taken, but you just don't know, you know, maybe this is not a criminal case. And that's why Victoria or I or Vincent, who you'll meet soon, can provide you to the right contact. But really appreciate you engaging in the discussion and sharing your input. We'll share that with our partners. And then finally, to report or don't report, we've kind of gone through this for each scenario. You know, folks have to consider when you're in that situation, we're in the business community, time is money, but also, you know, an epidemic of hate is very costly to businesses and to our culture. So we're going to go through. If we have time, we'll come back to these other incidents, but I'll encourage you to understand that this is based on a religious protection, the Jewish community, and a Jewish community center sits on the corner of a diverse neighborhood. A group of older men walks past the community center every Friday evening and shout out anti-Semitic comments. You know, we've seen the Jewish community increasingly be involved in hate incidents in our region. And so, you know, at this point, people can exercise their right of free speech using hateful words as long as it's not coupled with other illegal acts. So I think the purpose of this exercise, you know, to increase, when you add more facts, like Victoria said, that really create issues and an intent, that's when we kind of can become more involved. But both scenarios are important. So it can be challenging to distinguish between a hate crime and hate incident, especially because of all the differences between state and federal laws. So we do have, you know, local district attorneys, and we have the U.S. Attorney's Office. We have the California Attorney General. There's a lot of support, I will frame it that way, to the community that's available. And you may not know the differences, but when you do report, officials can point you to the right direction. So I think the biggest takeaway here is to report any incident you're aware of to law enforcement so that they can determine what to do with the information. And if, again, you think you're a victim of unlawful discrimination, you can reach out to my office and I will, you know, follow up with you, and others in my team will follow up with you. And what may keep you from reporting hate incidents and hate crimes? You know, we've gone through one example focused on race. If Nancy or others out there, you know, what else would keep you, we've heard time, from reporting hate incidents and crimes? Is there anybody in the chat feature that wants to? Oh, immigration status. Yeah, so that's a very important point. You know, I think if you are a victim of hate, regardless of your status, you should feel free. And actually, I'll turn this to Victoria.
Whenever we're looking into hate crimes, we never want to treat our victims as subjects. So despite your status, we don't share that information with any other departments. It stays within the FBI, and we're looking to just the subject and how to get justice for you despite your immigration status. And I see some other comments in here too, mistrust of law enforcement. I went to another outreach last week and I mentioned this, and as a woman of color, I didn't know that the FBI investigated hate crimes. I didn't know that there was any federal avenues of hate crimes. And so coming in and being placed onto a civil rights squad, I feel very fortunate, knowing what great work local law enforcement in general and federal law enforcement agencies do for communities, protected communities. So I do understand, and I know the history of law enforcement with minority groups and the history of law enforcement within Los Angeles, but the only way that we can gain your trust is by you taking a leap of faith and calling us and seeing how we work, not only to find justice for you and your community, but work together with local law enforcement, work together with the DA, the United States Attorney's Office. We have your best interest and your safety as the number one thing. It's why we come to work every day.
That's great. And so I see a fear of retaliation or being threatened. I think it's important to note our program is also tailored to help inform law enforcement that hate crimes and hate incidents are distinct, and that we do have a way of tracking incidents, that reporting is important. It helps us put resources in the right place. And our office also looks into civil rights violations when it's performed by anyone. So just one thing to think about. We're coming towards the end of our time, so I want to get past a few of these slides, but reporting hate crimes, that is when you would call to get immediate help. Make sure you're safe. You'd first, and Victoria, you want to take these slides to report a hate crime?
Absolutely. So
thank you.
Yes, by getting immediate help and calling 911. I also think knowing which law enforcement agency covers your area. If you're in Beverly Hills, there's Beverly Hills PD. If you're in Culver City, there's Culver City PD. Knowing if it's LAPD, sheriffs, and so on. But getting immediate help, calling 911. And then with that, having that same information of anything that can identify this individual, if they've already left the scene, a photo, a license plate, anything, a credit card, if they use a credit card, if they bought something in your establishment. And then you can always submit tips to fbi.gov/tips. And or you can even call the FBI Los Angeles phone number. It's as easy as Googling it. It's there, and we have a duty agent who will take any and all tips.
Thank you.
There's also 1-800-CALL-FBI too.
Okay, and then relevant hate crime indicators. So if you're not sure if it's a hate crime, part of a protected class, the comments, written statements or gestures, drawings, markings, symbols of graffiti, membership in a hate group, previous hate crime or incident, or location. So if it's at a temple or if it's on a special day. This is an example of AAPI hate. We can put the YouTube video in the chat function. It's just, it's important to note things escalate quickly. So if you're in a situation, you want to just make sure you're safe. There's lots of bystander training, so you can also support others who are being victimized of hate. You can be a good witness. You can call your local law enforcement. These are just statistics. These will also be available if we can drop them in the chat function. 2020 reported hate crime statistics, we saw a huge increase, but we still know that crimes are underreported. And we've talked about some of those reasons. We see race, ethnicity, and ancestry at the top within the United States, and sexual orientation following. This is hate crimes in California that are reported. The National Crime Victimization Survey responses. So we just look back at statistics from the Crime Data Explorer, but we're going to look at how it compares to national data. And you see the average annual hate crime victimizations, and we see this number, and it's pretty high, but it's still way underreported. So, local law enforcement, they are working with the FBI to report numbers, and many of those departments report 0 hate crimes, and we know that's not the case. Victoria, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so speaking to the National Crime Victimization, as you're saying for?
Yeah,
Have
just
time to respond to
that
another
local law
comment.
enforcement provide data, and sometimes it's zero. And we know that really couldn't be the case in as many jurisdictions that do report that.
Oh, correct. So going back to even Nancy, to use your example of, or the example that Matthew had up, that you said I wouldn't report that. That's a perfect example of something that would have gone unreported had that happened in your establishment. So we know that people don't have trust in law enforcement, feel like it's no big deal, even though it is a big deal, or for whatever reason, they don't feel the need to report it. And so we know that despite how many we get and how many active cases we have, there are much more out there that we don't know about.
Yeah, they asked the California slide, sorry. Going through this a little quickly, and I wanted to invite Vincent to join us now. Prevention, working together. Vincent, can you just talk about the Community Relations Services role?
Thank you, Matthew. Hopefully everybody can hear me. And again, thank you for allowing me to be in this space with you. So I'll make my time or my comments real quick. I won't go through my slides. So I want to thank Matthew for showing, first of all, the video of the Oak Creek incident. That's really typifies some of the work that my agency has done, Community Relations Services. Oftentimes with incidents, there's work that needs to be done before, during, and after an incident. And this kind of really typifies some of the work that we do. We were created by Title 10 of the Civil Rights Act. And Matthew kind of alluded to that. Could you go to the next slide, please? And we get involved in incidents, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, disability, race. Next slide, please. And what's interesting about our service is we're an impartial agency. The work that we do, which is around community conflict, is voluntary, confidential, and it's no cost. I like to use the term when I'm speaking with groups, if it's free, give me three, right? So we can come in and kind of assist you with tensions that revolve around issues that you're having that revolve around our jurisdictional areas, race, color, creed, national origin. And going back to Oak Creek, we facilitated a lot of dialogue with the community beforehand, during, and after. And to this day, we're still working with that community with some of the issues, because as we all know, during significant instances like that, there's a lot of trauma inflicted in not only the Sikh community, but the communities that surround the community. So we're continually doing work there based on some of the stuff we do in terms of consultation and bringing together dialogues. We do a lot of dialogues. In fact, I'm sitting in near Idaho right now in a hotel room. I'm doing this one now. Obviously, I'm shooting up to Coeur d'Alene to do another similar type forum, and then back tonight, one in Northern California. So we do a lot of these community dialogues, and a lot of work we do, facilitation, we convene parties to create dialogues like we're having today. We do mediation, which is some of the work we do, provide consultation. There was a comment about law enforcement relationships. A lot of the work we do, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, is with community, with law enforcement agencies, bringing issues to them that they may not be aware of because the community might not trust them to kind of bring the sides together to talk about like common issues. Plus, we also have some off-the-shelf training programs. If you could go to the next slide, please. Off-the-shelf programs that assist communities. So again, if you look at this slide, we work with like everybody, law enforcement, tribal communities, education communities, communities at large, LGBT community, governmental agencies, and of course, religious organizations. So we run a spectrum of agencies that we work with to provide consultation. So I want to kind of end with saying, collaborate, and build your network of folks that that can help with some of your issues, specifically the business community. Community itself is a very broad term. It's a community just like the communities you live in. So the services that we provide to communities also applies to the business community at large. And I'll kind of end there.
Yeah, and then just actions that we can all take. Recognize hate crimes and incidents. Don't hesitate to report to police and FBI. Utilize local and federal resources, and build strong relationships. Please don't forget to fill out the survey. We'd really appreciate it. Victoria, if you have anything further to add before we turn it back to the chamber.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And if you all out there would like us to present to your local group or community, please reach out to our office, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. If you have questions, you can visit our website. We'll make the PowerPoint available to the chamber, and I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
Thank you, Matthew. There weren't any questions on the chat, but I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there that want to be posed to the team here, the panel here. So if you want to take yourself off mute and ask away. I'm sure there's a couple.
First,
Well,
can you
Nancy,
add
go ahead.
that?
Yeah.
Can you add that survey into the chat link so everybody could have access to that?
Nancy, we will share the presentation with everybody after, but yes, we can, I think Jenny can add that to chat.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. So as you know, we see a lot of YouTube or TikTok of a lot of incidents in the last several years. Some are violent, usually whether it's a drunk person or not, but what can one do to keep safe when that happens, especially if you're being attacked, you know, especially when COVID started with elderly Asian women, men that have been attacked? What's the best action? Either Matthew or Victoria, that'd be a good question for our AAPI community.
Absolutely. It's unfortunate that we have to kind of be on the lookout, but just to stop yourself from being a victim, just be aware of your surroundings. If someone does start to say awful things to you, sometimes very hard to bite your tongue, but just don't get involved with them. But if you do see something happening, that goes back to see something, say something, we'll always say to report. And those videos, as awful as they are to see them and as horrific to watch them, those do help law enforcement. And we will analyze the video, we'll see who's in the video, we'll talk to anybody and everyone present. So it just comes back to be a good witness and keep yourself safe first.
Good morning, Alejandro from Resomercial. I got a question. How does ADA play into everything that we just heard?
Yeah, so our office enforces the ADA. If you think you're subject to discrimination, there's accessibility issues. The U.S. Attorney's Office brings active investigations and brings civil actions to ensure that those rights are being enforced. There's also nonprofits in the area that we work with and that take cases. So if you do have an issue, I'll encourage you to reach out to the office. There's a website specific to the in Los Angeles, and you can submit a complaint. And I'll be the one to make sure that that gets attended to.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and the panelists for your time.
Thank you for your question.
Great, thank you. I think we're basically coming up to the hour. We do have a few announcements. Jenny, if you want to take that.
Sure thing. So we just wanted to make sure everyone knows that there is a free Resilient Business Advising Program. You get free advising with a really great team of advisors, as well as marketing strategies and other resources and tools. And then also we have a free Verizon digital small business digital ready platform that you can utilize as well. And we have upcoming 1LA procurement inclusive training starting on Monday, November 28th, as well as a 1LA doing business with on Thursday, December 1st, and another Small Business Strong, our last one of the year, on December 14th. So here I will drop the links to all of those so that you are able to sign up. And thank you so much to our speakers again. And have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll be sending out the presentation as well as the links shortly after.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Really, thank you, Matthew, Victoria, Vincent, Martin. Thank you so much for such a valuable information. I think a lot of folks really don't know, never really knew where to go to. So this is really helpful for our small business and obviously our community. To close it out, I want to thank our sponsors. It's going to be the California Office of Small Business Advocate and Wells Fargo. So again, thank you so much to the panel. Thank you everyone for attending. Hope you stay safe and keep our small businesses safe as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.